think I'll save this last thing for later, but there is one more thing I want to go over with you guys before we call it a night for today. I have often expressed my support for electoral politics on this channel. I am a firm believer that direct actions as a vehicle for change should be paired with electoral goals. I think that by itself, electoralism is probably usually not good enough in order to solve problems. I think that the progress that we do make in this country is best realized in a combination of a social movement with clear goals enabled through electoralism. Case in point, something like the civil rights movement. Very clear goals of what they wanted results in something like the Civil Rights Act. In order to enfranchise millions of black people, in order to get rid of discrimination, codify that into law, you're not allowed to discriminate, etc., etc. I think that's one of the great examples. Another one would be women's suffrage. That's another great example. It started as a social protest movement that had clear electoral goals. Those are the successes, and those seem to be the successes that last. You notice the ones that don't have clear electoral goals can be reversed. A perfect example of that is abortion. There was also a social movement and a protest movement around abortion, but they didn't take it all away. They didn't get a law passed, basically codifying your right to an abortion. It stopped at Roe v. Wade. They figured that was good enough. And now we all learned the lesson. No, it isn't good enough. It's not good enough just to rely on court decisions. It's like, no, you need a law in there. We're all living with the repercussions of that right now. So when I see something like this, let me turn on my laptop here. And when I see people who are leftists, who are telling you not to vote, I get a little miffy at that. So this is somebody named Zexi, I think is how you pronounce that. Zexi, X-E-X-I-Z-Y. I don't want to pick on this person. I don't want to pick on them. But I got something to say about this. When you basically tell people not to vote, there's something wrong there. No. I don't think that's cool. Basically, going into this video blind, I've watched a good 2 minutes of it. It's about 11 minutes long, so I don't want to mischaracterize what they have to say because I actually don't really know past the first 2 minutes. So why don't we listen to what ZC has to say here and respond. I don't know. Maybe they might have a very good reason not to vote. Maybe I'll end up agreeing with them. Let's see what they got to say.
For a long time, I've made efforts to separate myself from the stereotypically far-left position of condemning voting. I've admitted that voting doesn't take long, it's fine to encourage somebody to vote who might not otherwise, and that generally there is a meaningful difference between the two major parties in the US and the UK. My skepticism around voting has come from the inclination of various leftists to put their full organizational weight behind liberal candidates like Biden or Stanmer, and end up being subsumed into these parties that hate us and our beliefs and leave our own goals unpursued. Ultimately,
I agree 100% with that. That's completely true. If you're looking to change things, then you can't rely on a politician to do it for you. I think a good example of that would be the anti-war movement, basically how they essentially went to sleep after Barack Obama was elected in 2008. There was a somewhat large and growing anti-war movement against the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, which were still going on at that point. Soon as Obama gets elected, they all go away. All the protests stop. Everybody basically just sat back and said, okay, he's going to fix everything for us. And no, he didn't fix everything for us. No. What should have happened is that those protests should have continued, and they should have got louder, and they should have got stronger. And they should have pushed Obama to actually do something about these wars. Pull the troops out, end the wars, whatever. I completely agree with that. It's like, yeah, you should not allow your movement to be subsumed by a popular candidate. And it doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter if it's Obama or Biden or Bernie Sanders even, or AOC even. You can't just trust in one person to do everything that you want. You elect someone who supports your ideals or who is open to your ideals, yes. And then you continue the pressure. And that's what you got to do if you want to see actual real change. So I definitely agree with that point.
Though I'm still arguing for a position of balance rather than outright condemnation. That being said, I believe recent developments have left this analysis obsolete, and that radicalism must now take a much more ruthless position to keep up with the changing consciousness of the wider public. The ongoing genocide in Gaza has led to a noticeable shift in attitudes in liberals and leftists alike across the West. We've had to watch as our political leaders march lockstep with Israel's brazen attempts to displace Palestinian people with no outlet for resistance in conventional politics. And then with the elections in the US and the UK coming up this year, this is naturally leading people to question.
That's not true. There were actual outlets electorally. It's just that nobody took advantage of it. There were candidates running for president who would be open to a view in order to stop supporting Israel and all that. The leftists have decided not to actually throw their weight behind any of these candidates. And so there was no real resistance in the primaries for Joe Biden. There were other people in the primaries that were trying to take it away from Joe Biden. And there was essentially no support for these other candidates. I can't even remember, like the woman that was running against him, I can't even remember her name. Marianne Wilson, something like that. Marianne whatever. What the fuck was her name? Now I gotta look it up or else I'm gonna go crazy. Marianne Williamson. And then there was a couple of other people that were running against Biden. Nobody supported them. There was no organization behind them. There was nobody. No one on the left supported any of those people. Marianne Williamson has a much more progressive attitude than Joe Biden on some things. I don't really know her stance on Israel-Palestine off the top of my head. But as someone who's looking to supplant the incumbent president and take the primary nomination away from him, she would be someone who would be open to receiving support from the far left. If she thought it would get her votes, she would take that position. Did anybody support her? Did anybody even spread awareness of her? I couldn't even remember what her name was. You know, I remember people on the Young Turks and Democracy Now! And Majority Report and a lot of other like sort of progressive media outlets that I listen to talking about Marianne Williamson and saying that she was going around and campaigning and stuff like that. Where was the organization behind her? The thing is, in order for electoralism to work, you have to put in the effort. You have to support candidates, right? You have to get out there and donate money and time and canvas and make phone calls and all that shit. Did anybody on the left do that in order to get a candidate who is anti-war? Did any of them actually do that? No. I never see that, especially coming from the far left. People like socialists and social anarchists and shit like that, because they don't believe in electoralism. So they don't participate in the process, so they never get anybody in there worth voting for. Okay, if you don't like Marianne Williamson, if you don't like her stance, I don't know what her stances are on war, but let's say she's a warmonger and you can't vote for her, then put forward somebody you can vote for. Field a candidate. Get organized, go out there, get the petitions signed, get somebody's name on the ballot that you can support. Is there any organized effort out there from the far left in this country? From, I won't even say the far left, just the anti-war left. I don't think that's the far left. I think the anti-war left is much more center, right? But anyway, is there any kind of effort from the anti-war left at all in order to get a candidate for president who is anti-war? Like, is there? I can't remember anybody talking about that at all. I mean, is there a discussion out there? Right? Are there people out there that I should support as somebody who wants to end the genocide in Gaza? I can't fucking find them. It's not going to work for you if you don't put in the work. Continuing.
Whether or not these genocide enablers even deserve our votes to begin with. And then from there, especially in the US, you've had the typical discourses of harm reduction and lesser evil voting spin up too.
Here's the other thing. When you say genocide enablers, if you look at our system of government, if you don't participate, then you are, by your inaction, enabling that genocide. Because that's the system of government we have. The system of government we have is through electoral politics. So if you're not doing what you can through the established system that we have in order to stop the genocide, one can look at it as if by your inaction, you're not doing anything to stop it, so you are technically enabling it. Okay? It kind of goes both ways. I mean, are you going to do something to stop it? You know, going and camping on a lawn at a college is not going to stop genocide. You guys understand that, right? You know, going and stopping traffic is not going to stop genocide. Like Netanyahu is going to be like, oh, there's students protesting at this college. We should stop dropping bombs. Like, do you really think that's what's going to actually stop the fucking genocide? You know what would stop it? If you elected a candidate to president who cut off the military aid. That would fucking stop it, right? If you actually elected a candidate and that candidate became president and that president had pledged to stop sending military aid over to a country that is bombing civilians, and he makes that shit happen, you know, how much do you think, how easy will it be for Israel to drop bombs on people without the $86 billion we give them a year, or however much it fucking is? So no, it's like, yeah, it's fine and dandy when you can sit here and take the moral high road about, I'm not going to support genocide enablers. Yeah, but you're not really doing anything to stop it. By your inaction is also enabling that genocide. How am I wrong? I'm not wrong. Moving on.
Today, then, I want to make the case explicitly against voting as the strongest strategy that the left currently has available. Now, because my usual video production process apparently takes months or even years now, I'm slapping this together at a much lower production quality, just so I can get it out while it still has some relevancy.
Yeah, I mean, I can agree that. I can agree to what they just said. As the strongest strategy, probably not the strongest strategy. It should not be your only strategy. You should not rely just on voting. You have to have voting along with things like protests and direct actions and boycotts and other sorts of actions that you have in your movement. That's definitely true. But voting, I think, should be one of the central tenets. Because that's the way that shit actually changes. The way policy gets enabled in this country is through voting. Policy is not enabled through protests. That's not what actually changes things. In the long term, it's not what actually changes things. Policy is enabled through voting. So continuing on.
For anyone wondering, I am also working on a much longer, much fancier video on the side, but that's still a bit off from here. So I just realized my neck is purple because my floor LED is on and it's too late to turn it off. So if you're wondering, I'm not diseased. That's just
man, come on, get
so
on with
the
it.
key observation of the current moment is that the rejection to vote is the most effective path towards radicalization. Due to being presented a choice between different genocide enablers,
Wait. Let's rewind that real quick. The most effective path towards radicalization?
is that the rejection to vote is the most effective path towards radicalization.
The most effective path towards radicalization. I'm not sure what they mean by that. I mean, if you're trying to radicalize your movement, and what do you mean by radicalize, though? Like, not sure what that actually, I don't know. I would need further explanation, but let's continue.
Due to being presented a choice between different genocide enablers, a shift in attitude against voting has taken place for many younger liberals and leftists alike, with the previously unthinkable of not voting for anybody being taken seriously. What's special about this is that not voting is a fundamentally illogical, nonsensical position, yet despite this, people are being drawn to it anyway.
I'm glad that they acknowledged that it is fundamentally illogical, because that's true. Not voting is basically taking your ball and going home. Doesn't solve the problem. And I'm glad they acknowledged that. Because if you don't vote, then nothing changes. Because what's going to happen is that the people who do vote are the ones that are going to get what they want. So if you morally, if you can't with a clear conscience vote for either Donald Trump or Joe Biden, which I don't see how anybody, especially someone on the left, would want Donald Trump to become president again. I can't see how anybody who cares about anything in this country would want to enable Donald Trump to become president. I mean, if you think it's bad under Joe Biden, if you really look at Joe Biden, which like I said in my last segment here, I personally think Joe Biden is one of the best presidents that I've had in my lifetime since I can remember. He's one of the, I mean, as far as the domestic policies that he's enabled, you know, he just descheduled marijuana. Like, he descheduled it from like a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3, for fuck's sake. That's something we've been trying to do forever in this country. We've been trying to do that for literally decades, since the 1960s. To say Joe Biden is a bad president, I mean, no, he's bad when it comes to foreign policy. And if that's a bridge too far for some people, which it is, and that's perfectly understandable, then I understand that. If you can't vote for him because of what's going on in Gaza, well, that's your choice, that's your thing, and that's 100% legit. Nobody, especially me, I'm not going to be giving anybody shit over that. But to say that he's a bad president and things would be better with Donald Trump is just ridiculous. And if you're going to allow the risk, I mean, we saw what happened under a Trump presidency last time. We fucking had children in cages, for fuck's sake, under Donald Trump. We had riots in the streets. We had people being taken away, snatched off of the streets by cops with no uniforms, no badges, taken God knows where under Donald Trump. And then he tried to fucking take over the country. The military coup. He tried to end democracy. And if you're really going to sit here and say, like, yeah, this country would be better off under him because what? Because Joe Biden supports Israel. Because Joe Biden enables a genocide. So we're just going to end democracy? Is that your fucking... I can't take that seriously. Are you people thinking? I mean, if your goal is to end the genocide, do you think Donald Trump is going to end the genocide? Fuck no, he's not going to end the genocide. You know, what is actually going on right now is that the Joe Biden and his people, yes, they're supplying Israel with bombs and stuff like that. They're also doing other things to try to get a ceasefire going. So to say that they're just sitting here and like, yeah, ship them all the money, ship them all the weapons, like, that's not exactly true. They are trying to do things to end the conflict. I mean, I'm not defending Joe Biden here, though. Okay, I'm not going to sit here and be like, yeah, he's the best president ever. No, he's not. He's not. He definitely fucked up when it comes to, especially when it comes to Israel, Palestine, and Gaza and what's going on there. He definitely fucked it up pretty bad. All I am saying is that if the Republicans were in charge, especially if Donald Trump was in charge, it would be 20 times worse. So what do you really care about? Do you really care about people's lives? Not just in this country, but in Gaza as well? Do you really care about people's lives? Because it's not like Donald Trump is going to end this shit. He's going to make it worse. I mean, do you care about harm reduction? Do you want the best outcome that fucks up the least amount of people's lives? Then how can you sit here and allow this man to become president? Through your inaction, the thing that you hate the most is going to become reality. This is what I don't get with these people. We have a clear fucking choice of bad and worse. Are you going to allow worse to happen? Because what? To teach the Democrats a lesson. Teach Joe Biden a lesson. I don't understand this shit. It's like chopping your nose off to like spite your face.
This is because in a political landscape such as ours, still mired in capitalist realism, where alternatives can scarcely be imagined, let alone be made feasible, resistance can often manifest as a desire to reject society altogether. In a sense, the only response to a world in which revolution or even reform feel hopelessly out of grasp is to simply declare, I cannot imagine a new future, but I don't need one to reject the present existence anyway.
Alright, the reason why those alternatives seem out of grasp is because people that want those alternatives are not doing the work to make those alternatives real. That's why. What they just said in this video, what they just said is that people feel hopeless because there's no alternatives. What are you doing to make those alternatives real? You know, I just mentioned this in a video last week. I just talked about this, about how for my entire life I've been hearing from people about how we're going to create, as leftists in this country, we're going to create alternative systems of power where we don't have to rely on politicians. where we can do things ourselves, where through direct actions we will basically circumvent the political process and bring change to this country. I've been hearing that, and I've been hearing that since I was in high school in the 1990s. It's been 30 years almost I've been hearing that. Are we any closer to that actually happening? Are we any closer to that happening than we were in 1992, for example? No, we're not. You know why? Because the leftists who want that to happen are not doing the work to make it happen. When's it going to happen? There's no alternatives. You need to create the alternatives. Here's a great example. One of the things I always hear is that, yeah, we don't need police. The community will police itself. You even hear this today, okay? Through the whole BLM thing and how everybody was like, reform the police and disband the police, shit like that. And you go, well, what are you going to do when you need cops? It's like, we're not going to need them. We'll protect our own communities, right? You hear a lot of this shit from like anarchists. We'll protect our own communities. Well, right now, if someone breaks in my house, who should I call if I don't want to call the police? What? My best friend? Hey man, drive down here with a baseball bat. There's a guy in my house. What's he supposed to do? Drop everything? What if he's at work? What? Oh, I gotta quit. I can't. I gotta leave right now. My friend's in trouble. Like, do you think that's gonna fucking happen? What if he just doesn't answer his phone? What if he's out, like, I don't know, getting tacos? And it's like, oh, I don't want to talk right now. I'm eating. Then what do I do? Right? Where's the community defenders that I can call? Where's the leftist anarchist community defenders who are going to come down and protect my house from thieves? Where the fuck are they? Give me a phone number and I'll call them. Right? I would very much like to never have to ever call a cop ever in my entire life. Because I don't like police. I don't trust police. Shit, my fucking dad was a cop, for fuck's sake. I don't trust him. Right? So I would very much like to never have to call a cop again. Ever. For anything. So where's my alternative? Put it together. And I'll use it, but it's not fucking there because you guys aren't fucking doing it. You're not doing the work in order to make it happen. It's just a bunch of shit talking is what it is. It's dreams. Oh, we're going to protect our own communities. We're going to help each other. We're going to do direct actions. We're going to blah, blah, blah. And screw the fucking men and screw the politicians and all this other shit. And then in real life, it just never fucking happens. I don't care about your dreams. I care about practical fucking reality. I want things to happen in this country. I want there to be things like universal healthcare and universal abortion and universal education. I want these things to happen. I want there to be help for people who need it when they're addicted to drugs or when they get evicted from their houses or their apartments and they're homeless. I want there to be places where they can go to get help. And if I'm going to sit here and wait for the quote unquote community to fucking do it, it's never going to fucking happen because they're not doing it. You know who will actually do this stuff? If I elect a politician who passes a law to collect taxes and enable a fucking program to make these things happen, then it'll fucking happen. So I'm sorry, give me an alternate to your solution and I'll use your solution. But right now, it's like, no, there is no fucking alternative. When are you going to make your fucking alternative? When is it going to happen? Let's continue.
The urge not to vote is one such instance of a blind resistance. The desire to escape the perpetual dilemma of lesser evilism by rejecting its premise outright. This desire is, again, raw, it's base, it's unrefined, it's often ill thought out, but this is exactly what defines it as a complete rejection of existing society. Because in rejecting these systems, we also reject their rules, their internal logic, and their entire framework of what makes sense. While those who subscribe to the logic of
I mean, yeah, you can reject all that all you want, but that doesn't mean that it's true. Sorry. So, fine. If you want to be in denial over lesser evilism, I don't understand how that becomes like a fucking philosophy. It's not it's not like this is a philosophy that you can choose to believe. It's the truth. I reject your notions of lesser evilism. Okay, but that doesn't change the fucking facts. One, when it comes to, like, say, our current political candidates for president, one of them is demonstrably worse than the other. And every visible fucking metric that you can imagine. That doesn't change it. I mean, this is what I'm talking about when I say that, like, leftists sit around and they argue about theory and, like, who has the better opinion and shit like that. It's like, okay, well, what about the practical applications of these theories? How do we practically apply these things in real life and actually get some results? Let's do that. Let's get some actual fucking results that change people's lives, instead of just sitting around talking about what we reject and what, that's an opinion. You want to reject this. So you're just rejecting this particular framing of an argument. How does that change reality? That's what they're doing right here, by the way. When you say that, when you say we're rejecting both sidesism, so you're just rejecting the framing of this particular argument. But that doesn't change reality. That doesn't give anybody out there looking for a solution for things on how they can affect real change in this country. That doesn't give them any solutions at all. Divorcing yourself from a problem doesn't solve the problem. It makes it worse. It's kind of like ignoring it when you get cancer and you have all the signs of it and you start bleeding out of your fucking nose and shit. If you just ignore that, it's not going to go away. It's like, no, it's going to fucking get worse. I mean, just ignoring the problem that our political system is fucked up. It is. I'm not defending any particular candidate. I'm not defending that how our system is not just. Our system is not just at all. It's very unjust. The rich have far too much influence on our political system in general in this country. But ignoring that isn't going to stop it. Rejecting the premise of how things actually is not going to change anything. You would think people on the left, right? Because this is where I identify. I identify as progressive. They seem to want the most things that align with the things that I want. Universal health care. Universal education, separation of church and state. These are things that I want that seem to align with what leftists want in the country. Social safety net for the victims of capitalism, stuff like that. Clean environment. I'm not getting those things through the fucking Republican Party, right? If I have to use electoralism to get these things, then I'll fucking do it. But Republicans ain't fucking doing it. Conservatives don't want these things, for sure. Seems like I aligned mostly with the left. But I don't understand this idea that you can just ignore problems and then they just go away. You can just argue your way into a new reality. It's not how it works. And you're not going to convince anybody to follow you or to enact your agenda if this is what you're giving them. Like, give me some concrete fucking results I can sink my teeth into. An actual plan. Give me a plan. Okay, you don't want to vote. All right, that's fine. You reject votes. All right, what's your actual plan to achieve the thing that you want? You want to stop the war in Israel. Okay. You want to stop the genocide in Gaza. How? If you're not going to, actually vote to influence the people who are supplying the rockets and the bombs, how are you going to stop it? Through what? A popular uprising? Are you going to buy the companies, the defense contractors? Are you going to buy them and shut them down? How else can you fucking do it? Explain to me what your plan is. Are you just going to go glue your hands to the road outside of the White House until they give up? I mean, what's your plan? Give me something practical that we can actually do, a goal that we can work towards. If it doesn't involve electing a politician that actually changes the fucking law. That would actually stop it. You realize that, right? Voting in a president who stops the arms sales would end it. Voting in a senator who passes a law saying that we're not allowed to sell to this country that's genocide or whatever, right? There actually is a law like that already. Pressuring a politician to actually do something and enact that law and prosecute people under that law would also end this. So if none of your solutions involve those things, then tell me the solution that you do have. Because I'm tired of standing around talking about theories. Moving on.
existing superstructures, our political systems and the electoral process, will insist on how simple and obvious just voting is, that can't change the fact that the desire not to vote is a seed by which a radical desire to change society can grow. Once this rejection bursts to the surface, an incredibly effective path to radicalize these people is to take those base feelings and turn them into a cohesive political worldview. This plays on the same dynamic we saw in 2020 over abolishing the police.
So not voting will radicalize more people so that they want to change things. Okay. But then what happens? So you've got more people that want to change things. All right. So in the meantime, you're just going to allow the political opposition, the people that want to do the exact opposite of everything that you want, you're going to allow them to run ramshod over the government and enable all of their dream agenda while you're standing around not voting, while you're sitting here and radicalizing people to want change. In the meantime, you're just going to allow the Republicans to go and enable their ridiculous agenda and outlaw everyone who isn't white and Christian. I mean, is that what I'm hearing here? So they're basically saying that not voting is a good way to recruit people and make new leftists out of them. So this whole thing is just a way of growing your movement of people who won't change anything because they don't vote. Is this what I'm understanding correctly? Let's move on.
At the time, immediately intuitive idea that cleared the way to radical thinking, yet also made no sense within the framework of existing society. And today, this type of demand takes the form of something far simpler, of not having to support genocide. What threatens this budding radicalism is that it must immediately clash against the facts and logic of existing society, which demands that these alternatives are born fully formed and able to meet standards which they're trying to move past to begin with.
Yes.
If we don't vote for the Democrats, how will we beat the Republicans? If we don't...
Exactly. That's exactly correct. Because give us some solutions. Yeah, they're 100% correct in that point. Yeah, that demands that these ideas are fully formed with answers, essentially, is what they said. 100%. The reason for that is because these are real people's lives we're talking about here. It's great when you're a college kid or something and you don't have responsibility to sit around and dream about how you can change the world. But people have jobs, people have responsibilities, people have house payments and car payments and children and all kinds of things that they have to take care of. Sick parents and, their kids' educations and their insurance payments, all kinds of shit. There's things that people have to do. And they don't have time to sit around and wait for this movement to radicalize people. Who has time for that shit? I don't care. That's the other thing, right? I don't have time for that. I don't care about that. What I care about is my job and my livelihood and my freedom. These are the things I care about, right? Am I going to go to jail because I have a plant in my possession, right? Is my wife going to go to jail if she has to get an abortion? If I have a child, are they going to be indoctrinated by insane Christians in a public school? Are my tax dollars going to go pay for a war halfway across the fucking world where in the meantime my kid's school can't even afford textbooks? These are the things I care about, right? Am I going to get cancer through my drinking water? This is the shit that I have to deal with. These are the things I care about. These are the things that real people on a daily basis have to deal with. Am I going to have a job in 10 years? Is my job going to be automated away through AI? This is the shit that people really think about. These are the solutions we need. That's great if you want to build a movement. Okay, if you want to use the disgust at voting in order to radicalize more people so that they actually build the movement that leftists and anarchists, when I say, in particular anarchists, have been trying to build for the last 50 years and have just not been very successful at it all. That's really cool if you want to actually use this as a catalyst. That's great. But what are your solutions in the meantime? How do you stop these? Because you know something, man? No one is going to join your movement if your movement doesn't have solutions. If your solution is, I don't know, then why should I waste my time? Why should I give you my money or my time or my labor promoting your movement if your movement doesn't have effective solutions? And like I said, so you don't vote. If you don't vote and the worst people take over, they're going to make shit 10 times worse. And in the meantime, the lives of millions of people are going to be affected. Personally, here's an example, just a small example. Abortion. 2016, abortion was legal. It was not even on the table. If you would have said to me that abortion would be illegal in half of the country in 4 years, I would have laughed at you. I would have said, there's no way of that happening, is what I would have said. Yet here we are. Why? Because the wrong person got elected. Because people didn't get out and vote in 2016 and stop the lesser of two evils from taking over. And now millions of women in this country have had their lives permanently altered in ways that we can't measure because of the decision for some people to not vote because they couldn't participate in the system that perpetuates exploitation or whatever it is. What happens now if Donald Trump becomes president again and they take the House and the Senate because, people on the left didn't vote and they outlaw abortion around the entire country? How many women are going to be affected by that decision? What's your plan to stop that if that happens? If through your inaction that happens, what are you going to do about it? Chain yourself to a tree somewhere? Is that what you're going to do? Are you going to go to a college and hold a sign? You going to go block some traffic for a couple of hours? Is that your fucking solution? I'm sorry, dude. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. I don't think I'm going to really be convinced here. We're halfway through it, roughly. And I haven't actually heard one good argument why I shouldn't vote. And this is the thing. This is what really gets me. Let's go ahead and turn this off here. I think we can... Now, please, folks, anybody watching this, don't pick on this person. Don't go to their video and fuck with them, okay? They have a valid right to express their opinion here. It's an opinion that I don't agree with at all. I think it's highly misguided. I think it's the wrong way for us to go. But this person that made that video is not a bad person. They're not some kind of fucking, crazy ass... They're not the usual idiot chud that we cover on this channel. That's somebody with a good heart who wants to see change happen in this country and is just doing it the wrong way. And I'm sorry, dude, that's just not... I can't get behind that. I can't get behind it. Right? Because that's not how change happens in this country. So do something, create your movement first. Like that last little thing that they just said, yeah, they expect us to come in fully formed with solutions and all that. Yes. Yes, we do. Right? Because if you want me to abandon the one process by which I might actually see the changes I want and use your method, then you better have a method which is fucking effective. Because protesting, standing around on a sidewalk and shit, camping out in a college fucking like quad or whatever, taking over the student union building, whatever, in order to get your change, not effective. It's not effective at all. It results in zero change in this country. Well, yeah, okay, you don't think so? Right. What changed because of Occupy Wall Street? What kind of changes did Occupy Wall Street facilitate? Was there any sort of regulations that were formed? Did anybody go to jail for what happened because of the fucking, 2008 financial crash? Companies like Goldman Sachs or whatever ripping off their customers, that kind of thing, bundling in loans like, bad home loans or whatever, and then putting like put orders on them and stuff in order to rip people off. Like, did anybody go to prison for this type of financial fraud that all the banks were engaged in? No. As hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people lost their houses and their life savings in that financial crash, was anybody held accountable for that whatsoever? No. Did the protests that went on for several months, I believe, not just in New York, but around the country, what did those protests actually achieve? Not a goddamn thing. Zero. So, yeah, give me the fucking solutions first. Show me how you're going to achieve the things you want to achieve. If you don't want me to vote, then show me how what you're going to do is going to get me what I want. And then I'll join your movement. not the other way around. But that's never going to fucking happen, because in order for that to actually happen, it requires work. And, you know, these people don't want to put in any fucking work. They want to sit around and argue about shit that no one cares about.
Hello folks, if you like what I do and you want to support the channel, please consider buying something from my Etsy shop, supporting me on Patreon, liking and subscribing, and checking me out across my social media links listed below. Thank you all so much, and see you next time.